So one of the major gripes with film photography is cost. Film is expensive, but this film is a little special. It's expired. In fact, it's about 20 years out of date. And because of that, I got it for about half the price I would have paid for new film. Instead of $8 or $9 for a basic roll of Kodak Gold 200, I'm only paying about $4.50 for this roll of York 400 color. Now, there is a catch. Because this film is expired, you can't shoot this at box speed. If you do, you end up with something like this. So instead, I'm actually going to overexpose the film by 2 stops. That's 1 stop for every decade this film is old. So that's 100 ISO in my case. And on this lovely Saturday, my dad was nice enough to join me, and we drove around town a bit, and it wasn't long before we spotted this kind of cool-looking architecture on this church, so we stopped by to grab a pic. And my dad actually took quite a few photos here too, so let me share those as well. I have him shooting on Lucky 200 color, and while it's certainly not expired, it definitely has a vibe to it. And let me tell you, summer was certainly in full swing. It was hot. And the hills around could certainly tell a story because they were so dry they started catching fire. So to try to beat the heat, we decided to go somewhere a little more cool. And while it was undoubtedly cooler, it really didn't offer much to see. So we stopped for a quick sandwich, and honestly, I didn't even get any photos here, so luckily my dad snagged a few. And since we're in the area, we decided to hit up Calm, which is California's Living Museum. It was pretty hot today, and I think the animals thought so too, because a lot of them were trying to hide in the shade. I did actually bring a spare roll of film. This is just some black and white film that I actually self-developed at home in coffee, which turned out pretty cool. Me and my dad actually took a pretty similar photo here, which makes it interesting to compare the new film stock versus the old, and there's quite a difference. I gotta say, I think I might prefer the Lucky in this case. The old stock is just really washed out. And here's another fun side-by-side of a self-developed photo and coffee versus that Lucky 200 again my dad was shooting on. But back to the question at hand, is shooting on expired film worth it? Well, I think the answer is maybe. It can look cool, but it can also look kind of flat. So if you're shooting something important, no, I don't think it is. If you're shooting for fun and you don't mind being disappointed by some of the results, yeah, go for it. There's no reason not to. I mean, you can definitely get usable photos out of this film stock. You definitely need to overexpose, and in fact, I could have overexposed this more. Film is really forgiving with being overexposed. But overall, I would say it's kind of cool. So, what if you want to shoot cheap expired film, but you don't have something like a Asahi Pentax K1000, right? Where you can't manually set the ISO. Instead, you have something like this point-and-shoot camera. Well, this camera doesn't really have any settings for exposure. It autofocuses, it sets the exposure for you, and it relies on a DX code to set the ISO. So, if you have film that says it's a 400 speed, well, the DX code on it is going to tell the camera to shoot it like a 400 speed. But if you try to shoot 20-year-old expired film at box speed, it's going to have a hard time penetrating the base fog, and you're going to end up with shitty-looking images. So, what do? Well, what you can do is actually take this Kodak 200 Gold, for example. You can modify the DX code. And it's actually not that hard to do. You do need a couple things. You need some conductive tape. I'll be using this aluminum ducting tape that I had when I was trying to seal up the vents on my portable AC. And you'll need something to cover up the conductive bits. You can use electrical tape. This is gaff tape. You could probably just use duct tape. Just about anything as long as it's not metallic and conductive, right? So the idea being you cover up the pre-existing DX code with the aluminum tape as the baseline to conduct, and then you go in with little pieces of gaff tape or whatever to block out those conductive signals, and you form this little special DX code. This one means 50 because this is 200 speed Kodak Gold that's just about 20 years old. Okay, that took some fiddling, but if I set it to 50 and I press the ISO button, it does register as the DX code. So it's telling me that it does recognize this film as a 50 speed film. So this custom code on the back is working. And since this camera will think this 200 speed is in fact 50 speed, I'll be basically overexposing this by 2 stops every time it takes a light reading. So it's kind of tricking the camera into overexposing this and giving me a better result. And honestly, these are a lot of fun. You toss this in your regular bag. You don't have a big, bulky camera taking up space, just a cheap little beater camera that you don't really care about. And I don't know, I like having a camera with me all the time, but I don't like carrying this all the time. So this is my my workaround. It may be worth it to buy the custom DX codes. I don't know, but I also don't know how often I'll be shooting expired film on this point and shoot. So, you know, why buy a solution you can cobble together? Am I right?